Hello, movie lovers! Welcome to Does It Hold Up? Box Office Edition. I'm Adam, and on the channel, every single Tuesday, we go over what were the top 10 movies at the past weekend's box office here domestically. We take a look at what are the top 10 movies of the year, how we're comparing to years from the past, and then we look into something a little bit deeper at the end of the show. This week, we're going to talk about Academy Award nominations. But as always, we get started with what were the top 10 movies at the weekend's box office. In first place was Flight Risk, a new movie just came out this past weekend, starring Mark Wahlberg, directed by Mel Gibson. I've heard mixed reviews on this one, but it did well enough to come in first place with $11.5 million. It beat out Mufasa the Lion King, which had been number one last week. Mufasa is currently in its sixth week, bringing in another $8.5 million, bringing its grand total so far domestically to $221 million. In third place in its second week is One of Them Days with another $8 million, grand total of $25 million. It's holding on pretty strong. I've heard good things about this one. It's a movie I definitely want to check out just when I have some free time. In fourth place is Sonic the Hedgehog 3 in its sixth week with another $5.3 million, bringing its domestic total to $226 million. And in fifth place, jumping up one spot from last week, is Moana 2 in its ninth week, 9 weeks strong. It did fall out of the top 5 for just a short period there, but it is now back, making another $4.2 million. It is just under $450 million domestically. That's crazy. In sixth place is a new movie to the list called Presence, and I will admit, I don't know a lot about this movie, but it looks rather interesting. Might be one I have to check out sooner rather than later. It brought in $3.3 million. In seventh place is Wolfman in its second week, not holding near as strong as One of Them Days because it only made $3.2 million, and its domestic total so far is just about $17.5 million. In eighth place is A Complete Unknown in its fifth week with another $3 million. Its total is just under $63 million. Pretty good for a movie that I don't think a lot of people were asking for, and maybe this is the boost from the award nominations last week. Who knows, but it's doing really well. In ninth place is Den of Thieves 2 Pantera in its third week with another $2.99 million. About $80 million, $90 million short of beating out A Complete Unknown for that eighth place, but it's doing all right. It's made $31 million in just 3 weeks. And rounding out the top 10 in its sixth week of release, but its first week in wide release, is The Brutalist, bringing in $2.8 million, a grand total of $9.3 million for this movie so far. But again, this is the first week that it's entered wide release, and a lot of people are going to check it out after it got a ton of Oscar nominations. That was a quick top 10, and we're going to roll right into the next chart. That's comparing 2024 to 2025. As I say here on the show, every single week, we don't know where we're going if we don't know where we've been. So I take a look at each weekend and compare it to the year before to see if the studios, if the theaters are making more money this year than the previous. Because since 2020, and maybe even a little before, theaters have been really down. At least they've been trending downward, and everybody kept saying it's the collapse of the theatrical release. Theaters aren't going to make money anymore. They're all going to go the way of the dodo bird. It's going to be a mass ending for theatrically released movies. But every year, it seems to be the opposite. No, it's not making as much money as it used to, but is it still making money? And I think a good way to look at that is to see if year to year it's making more money. So that's what this next chart is, a 2024 to 2025 comparison. It is currently the fourth weekend of the year, and last year, Mean Girls was the #1 movie yet again for 3 weeks in a row, and it led the way to every single movie in release domestically that weekend had a combined total of $56.6 million. Not too great, but not awful either. 2025 this past weekend, led by the release of Flight Risk. All the movies combined made $64.7 million, so roughly $8 million more, but it doesn't matter how much more. The fact that it's more is what's important here, because 2024 was a little down compared to 2023, and a lot of that was the strikes and things like that. This year, though, if we can maintain at the beginning of the year making more money theatrically, that will be really good going into the summer months. Yes, we had some major releases last year in Deadpool, Wolverine, and Inside Out 2, and at the end of the year we had Wicked and Moana 2, but this year there's a lot of good stuff. The final Mission Impossible movie is hitting theaters in the summer. Mithrigan 2.0, which everybody seemed to really enjoy that first movie, is also hitting theaters this summer. And later this year, we're getting Wicked Part 2, or Wicked for Good. So we still have a lot of big movies coming up that can tie or beat what came out last year. So it's going to be a very interesting race. And as long as 2025 can have a better beginning of the year, which currently it's doing, I think things are going to turn out all right. We're going to go ahead and move on to the next chart, which is the top 10 movies of 2025 so far. This is not movies that were released in 2025. This is out of every movie that is currently making money since January 1st. So a lot of these movies were 2024 releases, but what I did was take what their current total is minus what they made in all of 2024 to find out just what they made this calendar year to come up with the top 10. Let's go ahead and take a look at that. In first place is Mufasa the Lion King with 92.8 million. Sonic the Hedgehog 3 is in second place with 74.3 million. Moana 2 jumps up one spot from last week with 45.9 million, knocking Nosferatu down to fourth place with 45 million. Wicked in fifth place with 35.8 million. A Complete Unknown in sixth place with $34.4 million. Den of Thieves 2 Pantera sticks around in 7th place here with $31.8 million. I think that one's going to eventually pass up A Complete Unknown and maybe even Wicked, but we'll see over the coming weeks. One of Them Days jumps up one spot compared to last week with $25.1 million, which knocks Baby Girl down to 9th place with $17.9 million. Can't even read my own chart here. And in 10th place, just like last week, is Wolfman with $17.6 million. If you take a look here, there hasn't been a lot of good releases in 2025 yet. And when I say good, I mean just ones that haven't made a lot of money. In fact, only 2 movies on this list, 3 movies on this list, are ones that came out this calendar year. That's going to change as we go forward and bigger movies come out. But as of right now, a lot of 2024 movies sitting on here, but not going to stay that way. All right, that's it for the charts about this past weekend's box office and a few other things about 2025 movies. But let's talk about some 2024 movies. The Oscar nominations came out last Thursday, and there were quite a few surprises, and I don't really want to talk about those. I feel like there's a ton of things out there that people are talking about when it comes to that. I just want to give my own spin on what I think about some of the movies that got major nominations and address something that's going on with one of the movies, a controversy, if you'd say. First up, I want to talk about Emilia Perez. It got 13 nominations, and right now, it may be the frontrunner in a majority of those categories. And I think that's a little crazy. I watched Emilia Perez over the last weekend, and it's a movie. I mean, stuff happens in it, and like there's acting and there's music that's not good, and I'm not sure how it got 2 Best Original Song nominations, just insane. It was nice to see some of these actresses like Selena Gomez, who's back in front of the camera after a long time away being in movies. So it was really nice to see some of it, but overall, like, the movie was a movie. Stuff happened, and that's honestly the best thing I can say about it. How it racked up 13 nominations, I will never understand. Especially because that's the second most nominations for a movie ever at an Academy Awards show. It ties things like Lord of the Rings, Return of the King. Sorry, misspoke. It ties things like Lord of the Rings, Fellowship of the Ring, which also got 13 nominations, or Oppenheimer. How is it at that level? Is that where we're at here? I'm not sure if this is a play by the Academy to kind of like stick it to American filmmaking right now because of things that were happening last year, and I just don't know what they were doing, but it was a little weird. Another movie that got a ton of nominations is The Brutalist with 10 nominations, and that seems to be another frontrunner to win almost every award that it's a part of, if it's not up against Emilia Perez. But these are kind of your 2 frontrunners right now for the Best Picture win, the big award of the night. And I don't think either one should be. And we just talked about Amelia Perez, and we're going to bring up the controversy surrounding The Brutalist here in just a second, but it was interesting to see it get 10 nominations. What else got 10 nominations was Wicked. I'm in the minority here, and I completely understand that, but Wicked wasn't a good movie. I watched it. It was something. It was something. I don't think any of the performances were really that strong to warrant nominations here. The score wasn't that great. Visually, I thought the movie was very interesting, so I can understand why it got some of below the line nominations, but I don't understand how it got up to 10, and I don't expect it to walk away with too many, if any at all, on the night. The other two movies that came in with the most nominations this year were A Complete Unknown with 8. That one kind of came out of nowhere. And Timothée Chalamet may or may not be the frontrunner to win Best Actor in a Leading Role right now, so that's very interesting to watch. And then Conclave, which I think may have been the best movie of last year, also got 8 nominations, but over the last couple of months since its release, it's kind of fallen away from everybody's train of thought. So I'm not sure it's going to win maybe any of the awards that it's nominated for. Let's talk about The Brutalist real quick, because there's a huge controversy around this movie right now that may cost it some of these awards, including the Best Picture award. And that's the fact that the movie used artificial intelligence, AI. But did it though? Like, I understand that it did, but should that really take it out of running? For those of you that are unaware, there's a story out there right now from one of the editors that worked on the movie talking about how the movie used AI in 2 very specific ways. The whole point of The Brutalist is about an architect who's trying to create a better life, and his blueprints, his drawings, play a major part in the movie. Well, there is hearsay that those particular blueprints were all AI generated. So for this movie to get a production design nomination is like, well, if you were designing it with AI, does that really count? Especially when these blueprints and when these drawings and when these buildings all play such a crucial role in the movie, you kind of cheated yourself by using AI in that way. But there is the flip side to this. A lot of production designers, especially when they're doing period pieces, will hire consultants, people who understand that time period a little bit better, have studied it, know what the architecture or whatever is from that time period. So let's say this production designer hired a consultant, and that consultant used AI, handed in that AI stuff to the production designer who had no idea and then proceeded to use them. Can they really be held at fault here? So I think there's a little more to that story that needs to be worked out before we can make any judgments. The other part of AI being used in this movie is for Adrien Brody as the lead actor. He speaks Hungarian in the movie quite a few times throughout, and apparently, according to this editor, he just wasn't good at it. And there's a lot of Hungarian that just was poorly pronounced or poorly said, and you couldn't understand it, and it just wasn't very good. So they used AI to bump up that audio and make it good? Make it actually sound Hungarian rather than just some babble that came out of Brody's mouth. So people are a little up in arms here about, can you really give him a Oscar win for Best Leading Actor when some of his performance is AI generated? And to that I have to say, I don't think so. And I think that's what's going to end up costing him the award in the long run. But can we also blame him? Like, if you don't know, if you can't get the words down, if you're struggling with that, and you gave consent for the film to use AI to fix some of those little errors that you were having in pronunciation, I don't know if I really see that big of a problem. It's not like they used AI to replace his face or to make him say things that he didn't actually say. They weren't building out an entire performance. They were just fixing some of the pronunciation, some of the wording, some of the dialogue that he wasn't very good at speaking. So it's a slippery slope here, and I'm not really sure what's going to happen here, but it is going to be an interesting story to follow, mostly because the strikes last year, one of the big things about it was AI and the use of AI in Hollywood and people having to sign off on it and not being okay with it, and how AI is coming for our jobs and all this other stuff. So now for an Oscar-nominated movie to basically be said to be using AI to enhance it, might be a problem. And I'm not sure how people are going to think about it or feel about it. And it might end up costing The Brutalist quite a few awards on the night, which means those awards are most likely going to Emilia Perez, which I just don't think should probably win anything. I know Zoe Saldana is the frontrunner right now for Best Supporting Actress, but like, she's just okay in the movie. She's just okay. I'd give it to somebody else, but that's for another time. So that's a breakdown of the little bit of the controversy surrounding The Brutalist and a couple of the big movies that walked away with the most nominations. Let me know in the comments below what you think about any of those movies. Have you heard about the controversy surrounding The Brutalist, and what are your thoughts on it? I'll be back again later this week with an Oscar Redux, where I pretend to go back in time to redo an Academy Awards from the past and tell you who I think should have won each award out of the nominations. So like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff so you never miss a video from us. And until I see you again, remember to be good to yourself, kind to others, and keep watching movies.